Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Collette G, dating and relationship specialist and author. This month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and so in honor of that, I will be addressing a couple of stories that have been brought to my attention. And today's story in particular is that of Keaira Hudson. Keaira Hudson was a 40-year-old mother of three who was killed by her intimate partner who was her husband. He murdered her in her car in front of her children, and this was after she had gone to the police about a previous assault that was on video, and he was let out of jail the same day, if not the next day, and murdered Keaira Hudson. If you haven't heard about the Keaira Hudson case, here's a video clip of it, and I have to warn you that it is quite graphic. What you're watching here in this clip is Keaira Hudson's husband brutally attacked and beat her. The video goes on for about 15 minutes, but I'm only giving you a clip of the beating and why the judge found a reason to release this man without bail is the reason why I believe Black women's voices are dismissed and ignored. It's just senseless. So on this video, I'm going to be talking about why is it that when it comes to violence against women, Black women are dismissed and ignored. As a survivor of domestic violence, I have seen firsthand how often the police dismiss and ignore Black women when it comes to making police reports against their abusers. I can recall many times when I called the police on my abuser and was threatened by the police to be arrested along with my abuser. My abuser claimed that I was the one that was assaulting and hitting him first. Maybe there were scratches that he had to prove that he was assaulted. The police might be looking at me with a black eye or two and would say, well, he has scratches on him, so we may have to lock both of you up. Unless you just want to drop this and, you know, he takes a walk around the block for 5 minutes or so and you guys work things out, as if it was that easy. And in that case, you know, when you're in an abusive relationship and you might be defending yourself or, you know, in a position where your domestic partner has defensive wounds on him because of you defending yourself, the police don't look at it that way. They don't know what happened when they arrive, and instead of believing you that you've been abused by your intimate partner, they choose to treat Black women like the criminal. And so that is one major reason why Black women are dismissed and ignored. It is how law enforcement chooses to respond, or rather not respond, to our cries for help when we reach out to them. Another reason why Black women are dismissed and ignored when it comes to violence is because we do not receive the same court protections, criminal justice protections as non-Black women. For instance, I can recall another time when I had a stay-away order against my intimate partner at the time. He violated it multiple times. I was at court to follow up on that. I was there with a fractured rib, black eyes, and I remember the prosecutor telling me that we had to make sure that we're not putting an innocent man behind bars, she said to me. And so in many cases, when it comes to violence against Black women, we are dismissed by the court systems, even when we've done nothing to violate the abuser's rights and we're abiding by the law. We are dismissed and ignored. Also, if you have joint custody of your children, in many cases as a Black woman, you'll be told that you have to give your abuser visitation rights. So how in fact do you give your abuser visitation rights if he has a stay away order not to come to your home or not to come within a certain amount of feet of you? So the court then suggests that you find someone that you trust or know to drop the children to your abuser for the time that they're supposed to have them, with whatever the court has mandated. And in some of those cases, the abuser will follow that person right back to your home. Or if you don't have anybody that you can trust to take your children because no one wants to get involved with you with someone who's abusing you and they just don't want to get involved, or maybe you haven't told a lot of people about the abuse going on and you're in this situation where you still have to abide by the law, although your abuser is not abiding by the law. So Black women are held at a different standard by the court system than their abusers are, and opposed to non-Black women. Also, I can recall when I couldn't find anybody that could take my children to spend time with their father, and I was terrified of meeting this individual who had threatened many times to murder me, who had actually taken a gun and shot at me. And the court didn't care. And I said, well, my abuser is abusing me physically and sometimes asking my children to participate in the abuse. How is this okay for my children to be around an abuser? And there's no evidence to support the children are being abused. There's actually no evidence to support you're being abused, even though in many of these cases, you have physical evidence to support that you've been physically assaulted. But the law says to Black women, we don't know who did this to you, and there's no one to prove that this happened to you, and we have to take your word over his, and since there's no evidence, the case is usually dismissed. So this is how the law treats Black women that cry out against their abusers, and why violence is dismissed against Black women and ignored. Another reason why the voices of Black women are dismissed and ignored when it comes to violence is because there are not enough resources and services, programs and or organizations in Black communities to help inform, educate, and support Black women who are being abused. I received a violence prevention certification from a nonprofit organization in Los Angeles, and this organization was geared to helping to prevent violence against women, but also to intervene and provide education and resources throughout the Los Angeles community. The thing is that there are many organizations and agencies out there, but many of these organizations and agencies are tailored to and catered to white women. And so when Black women come for the resources, the services or support, or when Black women need these types of services, support, and resources in their community, there are no organizations that make the time, or there is no money or funds put into services to help women within the Black communities. And so when you don't have resources or information, there's no one coming in your community talking to you about preventative measures or intervention measures or places that you can go and get help, then you are likely to be not only a statistic like Keaira Hudson, but you're also more likely to pass the cycle of violence down to your children, and this becomes very normalized within the Black community. Another thing that happens is when, in fact, Black women make it into domestic violence shelters that are not also homeless shelters, the resources and services and social services that they receive are not the same as what white women receive. In many cases, Black women are re-victimized and re-traumatized by social services within the domestic violence shelters, and are told that they have to be home by a certain time, even if that means that maybe they're out there trying to find a job or a home. And I get this, because you have to make sure every woman in that house is safe. but the way it's done is not where they provide resources or transportation or any additional means so that this woman can go out there and create a new life that's going to help her be safe with her children. And in most cases, they're even told to apply for social services. And when a Black woman applies for social services, they're asked to where the husband is or the father of the children is, and asked to file child support. And in asking to file child support, that gives the abuser access to where you live. All of these things, again, make Black women extremely vulnerable and completely dismissed and ignored when it comes to violence. My last and final thought on why Black women are dismissed and ignored is because of the bail system. So because of the bail systems disproportionately locking up brown and Black men in jail, making them await trial because they couldn't afford bail, these individuals now, some of these states now overturn this, and in New York State, in Buffalo, where this incident happened with Keaira Hudson, her abuser is able to get out of jail and given a court appearance ticket, and on the same day or the next day, he killed her. So because of this mishap, now everybody just kind of gets a pass on no bail. But what happens when you have this no bail system is violent offenders like Darrell Brooks, who's on trial right now for running down people at a Christmas parade. And prior to him doing that, he actually had assaulted and abused his girlfriend, who called the police, but she's Black. She was dismissed and ignored. She's also homeless. Again, Black and homeless, dismissed and ignored. So Darrell Brooks doesn't get arrested, and nothing is done about the abuse that he just inflicted on his girlfriend, and then he goes and he kills a bunch of people at a Christmas parade. I hear a lot of individuals, particularly Vinny, on Court TV, he mentions how we need to let the judges take over. We need to let the judges talk about this and make the decisions to lock people up and do their job. And the fact of the matter is, when the judges had the right to do their job, first of all, one, protecting Keaira Hudson by locking up her abuser, who is a violent offender, and it was on video, or any violent offenders should be locked up and given bail, not just let out on their own recognizance. So the judge failed Keaira Hudson, but protected her abuser. The judge failed Darrell Brooks' girlfriend, but protected Darrell Brooks, who went out and offended and killed all of these individuals at a Christmas parade. So when the judges are given the freedom or given the right to make the right decisions, they don't. Because when it comes to Black women, we are dismissed and ignored. And perhaps if the judges were doing their jobs to protect Black women, this wouldn't happen. I can even look on the other side of it with a case that was in the news not very long ago about Gabby Petito and her boyfriend who killed her. The police had pulled them over, recognized that Gabby was physically assaulting her boyfriend, Brian, but they chose to let them go. Now, why did the police let them go? I look at the police at fault and the whole entire system, because on one hand, the police will threaten to lock up Black women, even though they're not the abuser in those situations. But on the other hand, they don't want to lock up a white woman. But had they locked up Gabby that day, had they arrested her, she would still be alive today. So there has to be some change in the criminal justice system and policing when it comes to domestic violence, and the awareness and the education that police and law enforcement and the criminal justice system receive when it comes to domestic violence, assault, and intimate partner abuse. There needs to be more education on that. And if justice is really blind, then let it be that. But in many cases, it's not. So if you are in a violent relationship and you need additional support, I'm going to put some links and resources below for you to reach out to some organizations and groups that I trust in, particularly for those of you who are Black women or women of color, and you have been marginalized by the criminal justice system and or police in your community. But also, I am a certified violence prevention specialist. So in addition to helping people get into happy, healthy, meaningful relationships, I also help people who are victims of violence, who are in need of learning preventative measures to prevent violence within their home or their communities. And I also help people who are suffering from trauma after getting out of an abusive relationship. So if you need additional support, you can visit my website at findinghappily.com, and we can take that journey together.